Okay, Cora, let's walk through this as if you were sitting in front of or standing in front of the Public Safety Committee of the City of Austin. As a director of a department, you could be called in front of 4 council members to answer these questions. So, this is 5200 South 1st Street. The first time this was turned in, Michelle Stark just completely blew this thing. You turned it over to Don Brickner. He admitted that things could have been done better. That was the nice way of putting it. First thing I note is that you've opened a brand new case number. Stark's investigation was still active. I'm going to tell you this is a common practice to inflate the number of complaints you receive and the resolutions that your department handles. Those numbers are toted all the time in order to get your budget numbers and everything else done. This is a common ploy. The case is closed. They did finally put in the proper address, the legal description, and the property owner as the City of Austin. Stark omitted all of that information. The complaint date is listed as November 29th per an email, land use violation. This is a continuation of the original complaint. The original complaint should have been put in here, but it was not put in here. I asked during open records for all the emails. This email was not provided. You're in violation of state law. I will be filing the complaint with the Attorney General. It was originally assigned to Willis Adams. It must be a new kid. I don't have a folder on him yet. On the 29th, it was transferred to Troy Collins on November the 29th. Troy Collins on November 29th makes this entry. On 11/16/2016, an inspection was made of this property. How could he make an inspection of the property when he wasn't assigned the case until many days later? 13 days before he gets assigned the case, allegedly he's out there taking photographs. We'll look at those in just a minute. Again, so this is all part of my original complaint. I said there were buckets that had standing water in them. He said the buckets didn't have standing water in them. He said one of the sinks was removed. Sings, S-I-N-G-S, it's signs. Again, this is the professional that you have doing this. This is what could be brought into a court of law. This could be brought into city council meetings. This could be brought into a hearing with the Texas Department of Health going after Troy's certification. He said one of the things was removed. That was a sign. That was part of my original complaint. Signs were being placed in the public right-of-way. There wasn't any signs of insecticide being used. Again, part of my original complaint. The mulch pile doesn't change the grade since it's not being spread out, nor will it cause flooding in the adjoining properties. He has basically taken all of my initial complaint and said that there was none of those things that were wrong. A mulch pile doesn't change the grade since it's not being spread out. If it's a pile, it's going to displace floodwater. We're going to look at those photos in a minute. He says the mulch bins need to be maintained and moved off the property line. The walking surface for the trails has to be ADA approved with an approved site plan. Okay. This was one of my complaints, was they used a bunch of mulch and cardboard and other crap to create these non-ADA compliant walking trails. He acknowledges it, that it has to be ADA approved and it has to have a site plan. But he's calling it mulch bins when they're actually compost bins. And again, this is just the same regurgitation of this up here. He says the mulch bins need to be maintained and moved off the property line within 10 days. The mulch piles must be maintained no higher than 3 feet. There's nothing in the city code that says you can't have a mulch pile that is 3 feet. He is making this up. If he's going to be doing this, he will write the violations down here below, but he failed to do that. The walking surface for the trail has to be ADA approved with a site plan exemption within 30 days. Within 30 days. So, there are no structural violations. Land use and property abatement, he failed to put anything in here for the appropriate city codes so the person could go back and look at and understand that he isn't just making it up as he's going along. He's failed to fill this out. In the notices section, this is the section where the inspector chronicles the notice of violations in the case, who's he's notified, how things are going. He has left this completely blank. Basically, this whole thing is a lie. He took photos before he'd been assigned. This is all a whitewash to make something look good. Now let's take a look at the photos. We're coming up on the City of Austin city-owned property violation referral. You'll note that there's no date on this document, and nowhere on this document is it addressed to anybody. He's got the address, the referral date. This is the date, evidently he's referring it, but not when it was sent or who it was sent to. There's nothing in the log about this. Typically, he would have written down in here, sent this notice to the Parks Department. Attention, whoever, Marty Stump. But he didn't do that because I don't think he sent the document. There's no email stating that he sent this document. I did an open records request for all emails. I didn't get a copy of any email saying that he had sent this and who he sent it to. So he says the mulch bins along the fence line need to be maintained and constructed to hold mulch and move 5 feet off the property line within 7 days. They're compost bins. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. All mulch piles must be maintained no higher than 3 feet. Again, he's failed to put a reference for this code. Anytime you store soil or anything else, you have to have a fence around it to keep it from getting into the watershed or into the streets. Again, it just shows his ignorance. Remove the arch from the right-of-way within 7 days. He didn't note anywhere in his case log that there was an archway on the public right-of-way. He failed to do that, but yet here in the notice of violation, he's talking about an arch. Remove the arch from the right-of-way within 7 days. The above violations have been observed at the above address. As the City of Austin owned property, this case is being referred to you. Again, there is no point of contact, no name anywhere on this document. Now let's get to the good stuff. Here's his case photos. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit. So here's the case photos here. Here's his first case photo. He claims this photo was taken on 11/16 of 2016. The camera's recording on November the 16th of 2016. That's 13 days before he was assigned the case. But yet his photo documentation log was generated 5 days on November the 11th. It was generated 5 days before this photo was taken. This goes to the credibility of the code inspector. Again, he refers to himself as a code officer. His job title is that of a code inspector. He has a certification from the state. This is not his job title. Again, his timelines are all screwed up. He's out here on the 11th, but yet he wasn't assigned the case until the 29th. You would stand in front of a jury or in front of the city council member and explain this to them. And he did this for a series of many photos. Here's the archway that was installed. Again, his photos aren't chronological, but he's in there right before noon. He's taken a series of photos. He states there was no water in the buckets, but he fails to show you the inside of these buckets. You do see this fence here is greater than 6 feet. It's probably taller than 7. These are the compost bins that are up against the fence line. You can see there's trash inside of here. There's stuff on top. There's bags over here. He is taking his photos from a distance and not investigating properly. This is just off of the area that's approved for the community gardens by a zoning, but not by a site plan. There is no approved site plan. You can see this huge pile of dirt here and this pile of brush right here. He failed to mention this big pile of dirt, but yet in his case log, but yet he took a photo of it. He came around the inn and caught a glimpse of this big pile of branches and things that the neighbors are coming in here and dropping off. Again, the branches and the dirt pile over this way. Why would you document things and not write them up? Again, here's the dirt pile. You can see big logs in this pile. You can see trash and debris down here. This is a tire. These are old pots. This is in conflict to the City Code 10.5.21, duty to maintain a property in a sanitary condition. He failed to write up the city of Austin for this. He's just looking the other way. He's come back to the community garden and looking down this way. Again, all of this is in the 25-year floodplain, no approved site plan. I don't know what's going on underneath here. Evidently, he felt it important enough to take a photo of it, but he failed to document anything about it. He does take a photo of the proper address and notes that it's Austin Parks and Recreation Department, but fails to send it to the Parks and Recreation Department. This is South 1st Street here, looking southbound. This is the mulch trail that comes this way. Now, here's a whole new set of photos on page 17 that are dated 11/30, with the following date being December 1st. This is proper. Troy Collins came back and took photos and then went in the next day, which is pursuant to your policies, is to get in there within 2 days and download your photos. So this is correct, but you notice the photos before were dated November 16th and logged 5 days prior on November the 11th here. So here's where things start making sense. However, if we go back to page 1 of the case log, page 1 of the case log, you'll note there is no log entry for being on site on November the 30th. Nothing. He says he was there on the 16th, and then he inputted his logs. The 1129 is generated by Amanda when an inspector logs in. He did not log any visits for the 30th. Why are the photos and the visits for November the 30th not represented in his case log? Again, he is omitting information in a government record and trying to paint pictures that just aren't true in order to protect his employer, the city of Austin, from having to comply with the city codes. Back to page 17. All right. So here's a series of photos. He's back there weeks later, and all of this stuff is still here. Again, if imagine that you are standing in front of city council and they call up an inspector from the watershed department. Do you think that they'll agree with Code Inspector Collins that this pile of dirt, this trash in his old tire, would not displace flood waters in the event of a flooding event? Of course they're not. They're going to throw him right underneath the bus, and they're going to throw you under the bus as well. Troy is a complete idiot. Whether it's a pile of mulch or a pile of dirt, all of these obstructions, this is dirt here, and there's dirt over on this side. All of these change the grade and create flooding in the floodplain. Again, on the 30th, he's back here. Now, here's an interesting picture here. Not only did he not include any information about visiting the site on November the 30th, the woman with the check mark here is Kate Mason Murphy. She's the lead for the garden project. Can you explain to me why Troy Collins would take her photo, obviously have a conversation with her, and not include it in his case logs? I don't think you'll be able to do that. And again, a series of photos back over here. Now, the rest of the document, pages 22 to 41, is the agreement between the city of Austin and Miss Munson and the other few people who are doing the Emerald Wood Community Garden Center. This is a document generated by the city with these folks. It's an agreement to run this garden, but they failed to go to the city to get an approved site plan. Justin Goldbobby, who's the program manager for the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department at One Texas Center should know better to let people do this inside of the 25-year floodplain. The right hand does not know what the left hand is doing. And this document was signed on 3/14 of 2016 by Sarah B. Hartley, the Public Works Chief of Staff. The Chief of Staff of the City of Austin Public Works does not understand the city code or is just saying, it's the City of Austin, who cares? This is the line in the sand we talked about. Candace Cooper and your public relations team created a series of videos that are just hideous, but yet they haven't informed the city of Austin about the city codes. This is an ongoing problem. And again, we come all the way through this. There's lots of problems with this. The installation of a mulch trail, the planting of trees. I have no problem with that. But the city of Austin clearly states all improvements are to be constructed to the city of Austin standard for specifics and details in compliance with applicable ADA recommendations. In this agreement, they know that the thing should be ADA compliant, but yet they didn't do it. Creating and installing signage for a nature trail. They installed a sign, but they didn't know they had to get a permit for doing so. Then they got upset when the sign had to be taken down. Solar-powered electrical services for off-the-grid voltaic things. We're going to have $14,000 worth of solar done out here, and then a hike and bike trail, $20,000 improvement here, all without an approved site plan. Oh, did I fail to mention that the gal that's doing this works for a solar consulting firm, Texas Indy Solar. So it'd be interesting to see who's going to get the solar contract. If it's her company that she works for, that would be a huge conflict of interest. This thing is all messed up, and it's just one of many. Troy Collins totally screwed up his case log. A rookie district attorney would have a field day in court with this, as would an investigative committee with the Texas Department of Health. It is very clear that Troy Collins has done this time and time again, and he continues to do this. Mr. Smart allowed him to get away with this because it boosted the numbers and made everybody look good. He refused to acknowledge that there were problems within your department. Don and all of your other department leads are selling you a very bad story. This isn't the only one. If you look at my videos, you'll see that this is rampant. And it's still going on. Even after we discussed Michelle Stark and everybody was supposedly trained, this is the result. A fabrication where timelines don't match. Now, it's up to you. It's your choice. Are you going to take the bull by the horns and clean this department up, or will you fall in line just as Carl Smart did and say everything is fine and allow your employees to continue to tamper with their case logs? This is a government record. Knowingly making false statements on a government record is a violation of the Texas Penal Code, Chapter 3710. It's in your training. That's how I found it. They know this is not acceptable. Ask your staff to give you a copy of how case logs are supposed to be written up. This is unacceptable. This is typical Troy Collins. This is typical Ron Union. This is typical so many of your employees. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.